this video, we'll talk about vdiscovery's solution to reviewing text messages in Relativity. Now, I know you don't have time to sit around watching long videos, so I'll get right to the point. You have text messages, you would like them reviewed and possibly produced. So vdiscovery has developed two solutions to help you do that. One is called SMC, which stands for Short Message Communication, and the other one, RSMF, which is actually developed by Relativity, stands for Relativity Short Message Format. So in this video, we're going to talk about those two solutions, what advantages and disadvantages they have, and how you can possibly even combine both of them together to get to results you're looking for. Let's get started. First, let's talk about SMC. SMC stands for Short Message Communication, and it's a workflow that's been developed by vdiscovery. It is the most flexible review solution in our opinion, and it closely resembles to Excel files you could already be using to review text messages. You would just be looking at the view in the Relativity, and you'll be able to see all the text messages and all the metadata in a list similar to Excel. Of course, the advantages of having this data in Relativity is ability to tag documents, have multiple user review data at the same time, and have a history of what tagging has been applied or changed over time. Now, the second solution vdiscovery offers is RSMF, which stands for Relativity Short Message Format. It's a file format that was developed by Relativity, and it tries to mimic presentation of text messages as closer as possible to what you would see if you look at the phone or a screenshot of the phone. For that file format, text messages are grouped together into conversations, and the entire conversation stored as one file, making it much more convenient to tag and work with the documents. The downside of it is these document groupings have to be determined ahead of time, and if you change your mind after the fact, you might be losing some of the work product, some of the coding that you had already performed. And we also have a hybrid solution where you can start your process in SMC file format and at some point in the process switch over to RSMF. So for the rest of this video, let's talk about details of the SMC as well as RSMF workflows. Once the data is collected, it gets processed by vdiscovery's proprietary tool to create conversation groupings as well as enrich it with additional metadata. So what are conversation groupings? Well, what we'll do is we'll figure out people who are talking to one another. So if we have a conversation between three people, messages between those three people will be put together into one conversation, and you're not just looking at chronological order of all the messages on the phone, not being able to figure out who are the messages being sent to. And so this conversation grouping really allows you to zero in on multiple conversations that taken place on the phone. Now, once we have that, we're also going to assign a custodian, and we're going to create a sort date so you could sort your data in the chronological order. Once that process completes, we have a DAT file which is enriched with a lot of additional metadata from custodian information, sort date, metadata from text messages like GPS coordinates and so on, and then all that gets loaded into Relativity. Once that is in Relativity, our client is able to go to a table view in Relativity and review messages just like they would an Excel spreadsheet. So let me show you what that looks like. So here I have a Relativity view that contains multiple fields. We have from, to, we have the actual text of the text message, we have date it was sent to, as well as other various metadata such as chat application, direction, and message type. When you're looking at this, you can make quick decisions as to which messages you want included or excluded. You can scroll up and down, filter, and you can use mass operation to bulk tag multiple text messages. Of course, once we're done with review, we'll need to produce this, and production in this case will be a DAT file. Data here doesn't really lend itself to being imaged, so preferred format here would be to assign a Bates number to each of the text messages and then export a DAT file or an Excel with links to any native files that are selected for production. Now let's talk about RSMF workflow. And this workflow starts similar to SMC, where a member of vdiscovery team collects text messages from a device and then loads them into proprietary tool to create conversations. So names will be analyzed and conversations will be created. The next step here will be to decide on message grouping or message denomination, how do we want to create our RSMF files? This is a difficult question because this decision has to be made before RSMF files are created and loaded to Relativity. What we generally recommend is taking text messages and splitting them in 24-hour chunks. We'll talk about why when we get to pros and cons of both file formats. So once the decision is made, data is converted into RSMF file, it is processed and loaded to Relativity. And now instead of seeing lots and lots of text messages, you will see groups or individual RSMF files that contain multiple text messages inside. So this will look something like this. So here you see RSMF file. It contains multiple messages as well as it contains inline pictures, which gives you arguably much better presentation than in the Excel file format. Once you have these files, you can code them just like you would any eDocs or emails. You just sign the coding designation and continue reviewing next text message group. Now, if you do want to not produce certain text messages, you would either have to exclude entire RSMF or image this file and redact text messages you don't want to see. Now, the advantage here is this file format lends itself much better to image-based production. So if you have to produce images, this is one better ways to go where you can image all the RSMF files and produce in a similar manner that you would to emails or any other eDocs. Now, question on your mind, is it possible to have a hybrid solution? Can we take best parts of SMC and combine them with best parts of RSMF? And the answer is yes. Of course, we can start our process with SMC where we collect data and load it in a Excel-like or spreadsheet-like format into Relativity. Our client would go in, choose which text messages they're interested in, and then we can perform RSMF conversion and reload that data in more presentable file format, where then our clients can go in, perform additional checks, make sure everything looks good, and finally approve those RSMF files for production. I hope this gives you enough information to get started in understanding differences between SMC workflow versus RSMF, but there's plenty more to talk about. In the next video, we're going to dive deep into pros and cons of each of those workflows. In the meantime, I'm going to leave it here. Thank you for watching. If you have any more questions, please reach out to vdiscovery project manager, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.